Hello and welcome to today's Summit Up, where we are really talking about how we can take vision and let that meet scale for creating unlocked potential and really building not only individuals and businesses, but whole communities. At the LLI, we're on a mission to build more $1 million businesses because that is what my friend Harry here likes to call the ignition point, where businesses create jobs, they build wealth, and they transform communities. So scaling businesses is not just about revenue, it's about power, it's about impact, it's about ownership. And I can't think of anyone better to join us on our first Summit Up for Entrepreneurs than our very own LEAP alumnus, Roberto Meza, who embodies exactly why our work here to build more $1 million businesses matters so much. From his early inspiration while at MIT to the intersection of creativity, culture, and food systems, he has been a co-founder multiple times between East Denver Food Hubs and now serving as co-founder and CEO of Party. Roberto has built his businesses with purpose, and his journey from artist to farmer to CEO reflects his deep commitment in his work around food access. So, Roberto, thank you so much for joining Harry and I today. Harry is literally on the edge of his seat. Ready to jump in. I can see it, Harry. You're so excited. But Roberto, we are so proud to have you in our familia and just thrilled to have you with us here today.
Thank you so much, Joelle and Harry. I appreciate this moment so much, and I'm just so grateful to be in conversation and hopefully spark some good debate and dialogue and new connections for other entrepreneurs in our community.
Awesome. I love that. So we can jump right in. And Roberto, we've known each other a little while, and I'm going to open this first question a little differently.
Sure.
So I'm going to start with, there's a song you may or may not know. It's a rap song with Coyote, Cap G, and Crystal Poppin called Built Different. And I want to use that as a frame the first question because founders are built different. To start a company, build a company, scale a company, and what you go through. And kind of backdrop, my first question we use a two-part question. One, quick opportunity for you to give a quick background on you and your current business. And the second part of that is a pivot back and tell us about what got you involved in entrepreneurship and being a founder, and what in your upbringing or the community you came from that built you to do this.
Awesome. Okay. So, yeah, I currently run Hardy Provisions. It's a local food aggregator, distributor, logistics company, and we support a lot of local producers and farmers and provide access to their products to wholesale markets such as hospitals, schools, food service, restaurants, and even retail. And so we kind of exist in the supply chain, but our vision is really to transform the food system through that creative intervention in redesigning how food gets from one place to another. And so throughout our work, we've been able to help a lot of small businesses, a lot of farmers, and maintain the viability of a lot of those partners. And so for me, it really goes to show that the partnerships we create in the supply chain can create a food system that we all can benefit from. I originally got into the food industry through farming, and actually was prompted by my leave of absence from MIT because I experienced a lot of health issues. And it was that feedback from my ecosystem and my biological system that was like, hey, we need to pay attention to some of these things, and I think for me it was a really difficult transition because I had my whole trajectory set for in the art world, building residency profiles or portfolios, doing commissioned artworks, and now here I am struggling, not knowing where to turn and what really to do about it. And all in all, it was a moment where it settled me. It made me stop and made me slow down. And that's really what I needed to do at that time. So I take it as a blessing now because it really transformed the way that I approach my business, my health, and the kind of holistic ecosystem perspective of an individual, a member of the Latino community, my immigrant experience, and my health, and how all of that really presents itself as points of entry to leading a business.
Yeah. I think with that in mind, you know what fascinates me, Roberto, about entrepreneurs, and something that we have ingrained in the LLI really since day one. We even when we did fellowship, we had an entrepreneurship element to it. And that's because of this entrepreneurial mindset. And you and I have talked, and I knew, your story at MIT and health and kind of what led you to take a different path. But if you're talking to other entrepreneurs, how do you describe, how do you define, how do you explain an entrepreneurial mindset? How do you go from art, MIT, to being an entrepreneur? And what is that? What does that mean to have an entrepreneurial mindset?
I think it has to start with faith. We're taking leaps of faith. We're diving into the unknown. We're embracing being stretched in so many different ways. And I think it's the constant kind of grinding of the stone for us. Like every challenge, every experience just sharpens our edge. And I think that's part of my mindset as well, is all of those difficult moments, those growing pains, moments of crises, that's when our edge gets sharpened. That's when we lean even more heavily into a radical optimism that is grounded in a confidence built on our skill set. And it's the constant innovation of that and the constant development of it. But I think it's also a force that's motivated by continuous problem solving that we just get intense gratification from, and we see that in how we build relationships. People always say it's all about relationship building. That can be really hard. That can be so difficult when there's a lot of different types of people that you're interacting with, and you're not quite sure how to position yourself, and how to act according to your set of values. But I think it's also a cornerstone of building legacy businesses, is having those relationships with your team, with your customers, investors, other prospects. And that has really come to me as a almost like I would say a parallel path of my own skill set and development.
Yeah, if I could just amplify, what I'm hearing is some curiosity. Entrepreneurs have to be curious, they have to be problem solvers. And I actually think part of it is creative and innovative, which probably your creative side, your artistic side really lends itself well for that. And of course, you got to be a little bold and have a lot of willingness to hustle and work hard. But I'm hearing definitely that curiosity and innovation coming together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And Roberto, you said on the faith and optimism, and I have to ask you, and we definitely want to dive into your business and your journey and where you took the business. But on that point, the founder journey is not for the faint of heart. Yes. And was there a moment, or were there moments when you considered quitting? And can you speak to those if you did? And if so, how did you stay in the game and how did you keep going?
That's a good question. I don't know if there was ever a moment where the thought of leaving or quitting actually was tangible. I think probably because leaving the art world and my graduate studies left such a strong impression on me that, I think for me, it was much more about like, why couldn't I figure out a different way? Like, what other ways could have been my path? And so I think that's the hardest thing for entrepreneurs as well, at least my strain, so to speak, is when is it the right time to take a different direction? How do you know? How do you know when you've done everything you can and it's clear like we got to go somewhere else? Or is it really a matter of have we really exhausted our options? Have we really explored the landscape of all creative possibilities? What am I missing here? And I think for me, I was always in that mode of trying to figure it out. And pivoting for me was not a different change of direction. It was a new evolution of what I was already doing. And I think the important lesson that I've been thinking about more and more is that oftentimes entrepreneurs confuse their sense of self and their identity with their business. And they are two completely separate things. So once an entrepreneur knows that their identity is not defined by their success or failure in a business, but it's much greater than that, then it's easier to make decisions about changes in direction or evolution. And I think that's right now where I'm starting to understand, like, there's more to me as a person from all of those experiences, all the skills that I've learned, than just the metrics of my business portfolio.
Yeah. So much in there. One of the things I want to pick up on is the pivot that you talked about, or making decisions and kind of areas of focus. You and I think last time you were in my office, we were talking about all these opportunities, as you began to build success, and now you have to decide. Talk us a little bit about how you decide when to say no, how to focus, how to really make those decisions when you are actually presented with multiple, avenues, lanes and opportunities. How do you as an entrepreneur assess those decisions and make those decisions?
In the past, it was really just throwing caution to the wind and seeing what sticks. And I think over the course of running a business, you begin to put in place specific rules, and those are data references to give you an idea of, like, hey, we're on track, or no, we're not, or the way that we're going, I can see where we'll be back on track. But if the data says, like, hey, there's no track to continue going on, market prices, other things out of our control, that's when you start to really think about another pivot. I would say in the last 3 years, we've just gotten so much data. Like, we started East Denver Food Hub in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. And it wasn't even for us a fully formed thought of, hey, we're starting a distribution business. For us, it was really, how do we respond to the need in our communities? And how do we support farmers who are in a space of uncertainty? And it allowed us to connect the dots through a local food supply chain. And we've since grown. I have payroll I have to meet. I have, other expenses. And so that has pushed us to scale in a way that it wasn't really part of our plan. Like, our financial performer was like, let's just make it over the first, 1 to 3 years. And now we're looking at, like, hey, we can get past the first 5, the first 10, and see where we go based on what we've built, because it wasn't in place before we did this. There were so many other distributors that emerged at a different time that weren't able to put something like this together. And so for us, it was really about, let's see where we've come to this point, and then let's really look at the data from when we started, when we didn't know anything. What do the numbers tell us? What kinds of things are we tracking? Are our dashboards built in a way that aligns with our vision and our values? And so now those rules have become incredible references for when to say yes, when to scale, when to double down, when to cut things off.
Yeah.
On that path to the growth and scale, Roberto, you sit in a pretty exclusive club. It's a club we want to widen and get more folks into. And that club, and it's an area, and it's a term that Joel's coined that I love, is called the missing middle. But it's this group of entrepreneurs that surpass the $1 million annual revenue mark. And you're past that, and you're in a place where there's very few, less than 3% of Latino founders make it to that milestone. But when you think about your path to that, what was harder than you expected about scaling and reaching that milestone?
The hardest part, I think, is translating the vision that's in my head into an operations, into a streamlined workflow and a team that gets it and that knows what to do. And, you know, I have the form and the vision of how the numbers add up, the workflows, like the daily tasks, all these different things. And the transferring it from the blueprint to the real world is the hardest thing. And for me, one of the hardest parts was managing team members. Like, I think the business itself reflected back to me my childhood, my fears, my anxieties. It is a mirror. Like a business is a mirror. If you really take it to heart in that way, that reflects back to you who you are and what built you. And when you really sit with that, it's time to get to work internally. You know, it's time to really like do some of that work so that you can be a better leader. And I think for me, I began to really figure out how do I manage folks by going inward and really looking at my internal landscape so that I can communicate better, I can show up for my team better, and really be kind in the level of clarity and precision of what we need to do, why we need to do it, how we do it, so that my team is not tasked with being heroes every day. We've designed a business that can function and sustain changes, even if people come in on their worst days, you know, so it's really built for that kind of team dynamic. But that I think has been the hardest part for me is how do you lead when you come from a place of how to say this, not having those experiences to lead and not being recognized as a
Yeah.
that's the biggest struggle.
Something I'm quite passionate about, right, is these internal mindset models that we have brought with us into our positions of leadership. Some we need to shed. I often talk about these invisible backpacks, right, that have our culture, our lived experience, the messages, the lack of representation, the lack of modeling of like what does a founder look like and do, and it's a really important part. I mean, you can build a business. I hear you strategy, I hear you vision, really laying into the data to really determine all of that is true. And we're humans, and we got to come to these roles with all that comes in that invisible backpack. So no filters, and really appreciate you. What have you had to work on personally to be that leader? You know, what are some of the things that you've had to be intentional and put effort behind to be the kind of founder that you hope you can model others to follow?
Totally. I'll kind of start with just a comment on my upbringing. When I first moved to the US, like I didn't understand the transition and what that meant. And so I was very restless, which meant I was always outside playing, trying to get that energy moving. And I really despised being indoors in a chair, being in a classroom. And with that, you know, the optics of that for a teacher was like, this child needs some help, you know, like we gotta really start at the basics here. But it ingrained in me that I wasn't smart, that I, you know, was not meant for school. Like education was something of a challenge for me. I'm just gonna be outdoors, sports, and you know, focus on that. And I think it really created a lot of shame for me, you know. So anything that had to do with numbers or letters or reading, it reflected back to me my restlessness, my inability to focus and concentrate, and then my lack of confidence in those contexts. And you know, thankfully, like my parents saw that I needed to be out and they encouraged me, but they were also really supportive and understanding in what I was going through. They never disciplined me for, not getting the grades that I needed to get. And they really just kind of had faith in the process and me and their values and my upbringing. And eventually, like, I began to develop an innate sense of curiosity and self-learning. And that's what really kind of set me on a trajectory for knowledge acquisition and for constantly understanding and learning. And so I would say, for me, it was really a relearning of just like the basics. I had no financial literacy as much as I thought I did to start a business, but man, it kicked my butt and it made me learn, how to read balance sheets, how to do a P&L, what the cash flow means, like all of these just basic rudimentary things that you're supposed to know when you start a business. But the nature of the business makes you see those things in a completely different light after, 3, 5 years. So I think it was just that, it was like learning the basics. And then also I really had to work on my communication. English is not my first language, and I spent a lot of time honing that and really learning how to communicate and deconstructing my previous habits, and trying to get more and more clear on the word use and the wordsmithing to communicate. Yeah. And then I think also is spending time with myself and being in solitude and really taking a hard look at what are the things that I fear. Where do those come from? And making fear your friend so that you don't turn away from it, you turn towards it. And it really gives you a lot more insight into who you are and what you need to do and what you're being called to do. And I would say the last thing is just deepening my faith in myself and my team and running through any worst case scenarios, whether it's, hey, we're at a financial deficit this year, like we're not going to be able to make it, to, waking up and, hey, we don't have any drivers, like how are we going to get food from one place to another? So many different things, and just kind of taking a step back and realizing that what you're feeling is your nervous system. It is not a kind of portrayal of reality that's affecting you. And so having the mindfulness to pause, recalibrate, and then get to work was also a skill set that I needed to learn.
Well, it's all coming together because that path, that trajectory is all headed in the right way. And as part of that, Roberto, and I love asking this question because of kind of where you are and all the work that you and your team have put in to get you where you are. The next 5 years, as you look ahead, where do you want the company to be? Where do you see the company to be? Where's your vision? I want to see the big one now, because you get to finally talk in that way.
Totally.
Now.
Okay. Well, we want to break the $2 million mark. That's
yeah.
We're there, and it's been real. Like the first year that we're like, man, we could do this, was when we began to see the incredible opportunities we have building off of the initial first 3 years and building that foundation. And now it's like, hey, we got it. We got infrastructure. We have trust. We have knowledge. We have processes. We have systems in place. We have our guide rails. We know what the business needs to look like. We know what to do in case of an emergency or risk mitigation. And now we're prepping to really support the schools that are participating in new funding opportunities to purchase locally, right? And that has prompted a whole evolution of what the business could be in terms of a kind of branded house, so to speak, where we're
Mm-hmm.
co-manufacturing products like nixtamalized masa for tamales that
yes.
processor. Sign me up.
We actually have some Leap entrepreneurs in our new that there could be partnership and collaboration. I'm seeing it now.
Yeah, so developing that value chain, right, from seed to process and final product, to processing fruits and veggies for dehydrated items, freeze-dried items, creating a line. At first, it was a waste divergent effort, but now there's demand and the numbers show what's possible in those products. And I think it's also now we've created infrastructure and an expanded understanding of what that means. It's not just trucks and warehouses, but we have social infrastructure. We have capital infrastructure, like all these different pieces that why can't we? What's holding us back from reaching that $2 million mark?
Love that.
Right. So for me, it's really activating all these different things or, germinating these seeds and growing them so that we can get to a place that we probably never have imagined when we first started.
Well, you are there, my friends. And, we have been grateful to be alongside you a little bit in this journey and to watch that. You're going to hit that 2 million. There's no question. We're at about time, but I do want to acknowledge we have some really good questions. And so I'm actually going to shift my questions to put their questions together. So our good friend Ruby, who's doing amazing work in bringing AI to our community and teaching on that, she has a question about what advice would you give a new founder who is trying to navigate both building something new while also trying to do personal transformation. You talked a little bit about that, but if you were to give one piece of advice to her and others, what would it be? And then the second question, just wrapping it up, you got some love for your business model. Do you see that model moving to other states?
Awesome. Great questions. To Ruby, I would say, use the business as an opportunity for personal transformation. I think it's not entirely separate, but it is a space, it is a lab for you to experiment with yourself and your personal growth in that area. And the easiest way to do that is get a good system down. Like, what are your systems for producing a new product? What does it need to look like? Get your finances aligned and dialed in for that, and who's running what does it look like? If you can describe it in as much detail as possible, then turn that into an operating system so that the product can almost develop itself, so to speak, with you guiding it and empowering your team. That I think would be the best way to go. So getting really clear on what that new product eventually needs to look like and how to get it there. And then for Charlotte, I have thought about this, but I think the coolest thing is seeing at what's happening in other regions and other states and seeing if there's collaboration there. The big vision would be, could we create similar type businesses across the nation that work with each other, that support local, and that can move product at scale, that can fill in the gaps of some of the larger broadliners, and really create a niche for ourselves across the nation. That would be like the whole value chain vision and the dream.
I love that. Hey, I have one. I know I said it last question, but and if you're willing to share, and if you're not, that's fine. When you started Leap, you were in cohort 1, which was what, 2-3 years ago. Yeah. You're close to 2 million. Do you remember where you were revenue wise before you joined Leap?
I don't remember actually. I would say like maybe 1.2, I think.
1.2. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you're going to nearly double that. Yeah. And I just want to call this out because I want to amplify something you said in how I want to sum up today, because, at the root of this entrepreneur journey, it takes a bold leader. I mean, you got to have vision, you got to be willing to hustle, you got to be willing to put in the work both to yourself and then have these systems and operations going. But the one thing I know about your journey over the last 3 years is that you also have to have an ecosystem, a network, mentors, subject matter experts, community that has your back. And it's amazing how that social capital creates pathways and opportunities and knowledge flow. And I gotta believe that combined with your vision and your hustle and all the work you put in and that ecosystem, that 2 million quickly becomes your floor, my friend. I really believe that. And that's why we do this work. And it's been a real honor over 3 years. But Harry really gets a lot of the credit for this. So I usually end the summit up, but I just wanted to add that. But Harry, I really want you to have the last word here, because I just see that 3-year transformation, and I see, you know, when we do this work across the country and we pull in entrepreneurs from Florida to Seattle and everywhere in between, Roberto is that model that we'll continue to leverage. But why don't you close us out today, Harry?
Oh, it's always amazing and a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. And I can tell you from when we met prior to cohort 1, to hear you talk about your business,
Yeah.
It's emotional.
I appreciate it.
It's a lot. I will close with one thing, because I think it's really important. I think it's really at the center of entrepreneurship for especially our community. You can build wealth and serve your community, and they're not mutually exclusive, and you are the prime example of that. I don't want anyone to lose and separate those two. They don't have to be. They can all be together. I appreciate you, my friend. It's always an honor to connect with you, and definitely stay in contact. And I don't see 2. 5 is in my head, so
totally.
You're going to be past that. It's gonna be 5, and it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Always, my friend.
Likewise, yeah. Thank you, Harry and Joel, and just appreciate you doing this for a lot of Latino entrepreneurs. Like I said, I didn't have a role model, I didn't have this network. Many of us have incredible ideas, and with the help of a strong network and just guides along the way, we can help each other avoid a lot of silly mistakes, you know, like we can learn from what's working just as much as we can learn from what doesn't work. And I think that for me is what comes through when I think about the LEAP program and how much you're going to be impacting so many different entrepreneurs in our community.
Yeah. Well, cheers to you, my friends. Keep up the great work. Keep us posted. Everyone, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your comments, your questions. Don't forget, applications are now open for LEAPS cohort 4, 5, and 6. It doesn't matter where you are in the country. You can join us now in this journey. Join Roberto in becoming that next $2 million business. Take care, everyone, and take care of each other. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.